They once believed you'd never see through it. The charm, the sweet words, the fake concern, it was all a mask. But now, you've seen the truth, and that moment changed everything. When the narcissist realizes you've caught on, they don't walk away. On the contrary, they fight back. They start falling in love all over again, recycling old tricks, promises, subtle gestures designed to make you second-guess yourself, to wonder if you misjudged them. But this time, you're not blinded. You recognize the performance, the desperate attempt to trap you once more in the mental cage they once constructed. Then, they shift tactics. They begin manipulating those around you, friends, family, even people you once trusted. They smear your name while playing the perfect victim, isolating you in a sea of doubt and confusion. But you are not alone. You've awakened. In today's video, I'll walk you through what really happens when a narcissist realizes they've been exposed, and how to stand firm in your power so you never fall into their toxic cycle again. This is a crucial turning point in your journey to reclaim your peace and your worth. So, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and watch until the end, because what you're about to learn could be the very key that leads you into the light, stronger than ever. Let's begin. Stage 1. Silent panic. When the truth touches the false self. When you uncover the true face of a narcissist, something fascinating happens, but you won't see it right away. There's no dramatic outburst, no bitter confession, no apology echoing in the air. Instead, you'll sense a quiet yet intense shift, as if you've touched something sacred and dangerous. The real self. This is when the narcissist falls into silent panic. You might not see the storm with your eyes, but you'll feel it. It shows up in sudden, sweet messages after weeks of silence. A surprise call with a soft voice, pretending like nothing ever happened. Little gestures that seem innocent, liking your photo, messaging your friends, or sending an old song with a note. Just thought this might bring back some good memories. They're not doing this because they love you. They're doing it because they fear you. They fear that you've stopped believing in the illusion they worked so hard to create. They fear you've seen someone with no depth, no empathy, and most importantly, no longer any control over you. And for a narcissist, losing control is losing everything. Their ego isn't built on truth. It's built on validation, admiration, and others' submission. When you step out of the role they assigned you, the admirer, the enabler, the savior, you've done the one thing they cannot forgive. You've made their lies meaningless. At this stage, the narcissist switches into survival mode. But instead of facing you directly, they retreat. They don't confront. They probe. They watch your reactions. They test a bit of kindness, a touch of normalcy, a sprinkle of care, just to see, have you really broken free from their grip? If you respond, even with a simple emoji, a polite thank you, or the tiniest flicker of softness, they receive the signal, the game is still on. When that happens, they return to the board. What if you remain silent, grounded, and unresponsive? That's when the real panic sets in, because you're no longer playing the puppet in their performance. And no matter how clever they are, a narcissist cannot control someone who is no longer emotionally reactive to them. It terrifies them to realize that you've grown emotionally, that you don't need them, that you're not afraid of losing them, that you're no longer clinging to the fake validation they once handed out like candy. In the narcissist's eyes, you're not someone to love. You're a mirror, and that mirror has just reflected the emptiness inside them. Your silence isn't just a refusal to engage, it's a declaration. It says you've seen them and survived. It says you no longer believe in the illusion. You're no longer drawn to their fake glow. And most of all, you're no longer within their control. In the narcissist's world, that's unacceptable. But they won't explode in anger just yet. They'll try to keep the mask on, still polite, still nice, still normal. But inside, the fear of being exposed is eating them alive, and that is the moment you hold the greatest power, if you are wise enough not to look back. Stage 2. Emotional reboot. When they put on the angelic suit again. After the stage of silent panic, the narcissist won't easily surrender the supply that once fed their ego, and if you remain silent, if you still don't react, they will shift to a new form of manipulation. A tactic that once made you fall. Love bombing, upgraded edition. They won't apologize. They won't admit their faults. Instead, they'll reconstruct a flawless image of themselves. The ideal lover, their soulmate, the one who knows you better than anyone. You'll receive emotional messages like, "I've been thinking a lot lately. I miss the way your eyes light up when you smile. You're the best thing that ever happened to me." Not because they're remorseful, but because they're doing what they do best. Reading your emotional needs and repainting a version of themselves you once fell for. They won't offer a genuine apology because they don't feel guilty. They simply realize that what once worked to keep you around has failed. Now, they must perform better, more subtly, more convincingly. You'll see a version of them kinder than ever before. They're suddenly attentive. They remember the little things. They bake cookies, they write handwritten notes, they text you every morning with blessings for your day. Everything seems so sincere, it makes your heart ache, and that's the trap. Their affection lacks depth, but it spans wide. Wide enough to reach the wounded parts of you. And the narcissist knows. You don't need a perfect apology. You just need to feel like, maybe this time will be different. The problem is, it won't be. The only thing different is their tactics, now more sophisticated, disguised under a cloak of fake growth. They've learnt the language of healing. They've learnt to talk about boundaries, accountability, emotional maturity, and empathy. Not because they believe in these things, but because you do. And so, they weaponize the very language of healing to manipulate you all over again. They'll create new memories with you. Romantic dates, vulnerable stories about their wounded inner child, and apparent efforts to change, all to convince you that maybe, just maybe, they've finally awakened. But in truth, you are the one who has changed. You are the one who has awakened. They're simply trying on morality, like an actor testing out a new costume. This emotional reboot isn't about wanting love again. It's about their inability to tolerate the feeling of losing to you. And the only way to regain the upper hand is to lure you back willingly, only to reinitiate the same toxic cycle. Of course, they won't rush. They know you're cautious now, so they'll be strangely patient and persistently sweet. They won't push. Instead, they'll plant seeds of doubt. Maybe I judge too harshly. Maybe everyone deserves a second chance. After all, no one's perfect. But remember, this kindness doesn't come from a repentant heart. It comes from a calculating mind. This is the most dangerous stage. Not because they're attacking, but because they're giving you hope. And for a wounded soul, hope is often more tempting than loneliness. They know that. They bank on that. And if you come back, they'll smile quietly to themselves, because in that moment, you didn't just forgive them, you began to doubt yourself. Stage 3. Silent retaliation. Abrupt turn, a choke of the opponent's alarm, the danger behind the gentle smile. You don't come back. If you don't respond to their calculated kindness, if you hold your boundaries and resist their attempts to accidentally stir old memories, then you've entered a darker stage, silent retaliation. A narcissist doesn't explode in the way you might expect. There's no screaming, no smashing, no public outbursts. At least not in front of you. Instead, they withdraw, not to surrender, but to strategize. They step back to strike from behind. They know that sweet words no longer hold power over you, so they turn to an older, more insidious weapon, social manipulation. This is when they begin to whisper in the ears of others, and you don't even know it's happening. They don't say, "She's a terrible person." They simply sigh, "I don't know what's going on with her anymore. She's changed." They don't accuse you. they plant questions, and if someone asks you about it, if you react, you look unstable. Meanwhile, they keep smiling, ever so politely. This is image warfare, a battle you weren't warned about, with no rules and no standard way to defend yourself. They sow doubt, drop by drop, into the minds of those you once trusted. They want you to feel betrayed, misunderstood, and alone, because when you're isolated, you're most vulnerable and more likely to fall back under their control. Now, they begin building witnesses. The ex they once trashed suddenly becomes their close friend. Your best friend now seems oddly friendly with them. People who once stood beside you start becoming neutral. You are quietly discredited, not through truth, but through deliberate whispers. And the scariest part, no one sees the narcissist as the one pulling the strings, because they are masters of strategic kindness. They know how to destroy you without leaving fingerprints. To outsiders, you begin to look unstable because you're angry. You want to defend yourself. You're distressed by the rumors, but the more you react, the more you seem like the one with the problem, and that's when they win in silence. A narcissist's victory doesn't require your return. All they need is for you to lose emotional control, lose credibility, lose the trust of others, and they feel supplied again. Not by love, but by psychological power. And if you still don't collapse? But one thing remains. They will always strike in ways that make sure no one sees them throwing the punch. This stage is what causes many victims to feel like they're going crazy. No one believes them. No one understands what's really happening. And because there's no clear evidence, no dramatic proof, they suffer in isolation. But you, if you are in this stage, must remember one vital truth. Your silence and refusal to retaliate is not weakness. It is your quiet victory, or because you didn't react the way they expected. You didn't lose yourself trying to win an invisible war, and you understand this truth. The truly strong don't need to scream to be believed. They just need to remain steadfast in their truth. Stage 4. Character assassination. When they can't let you leave with your head held high. When all their silent tactics fail. When you don't fall for the love bombing, when you don't respond to subtle provocation or crumble under social pressure, the narcissist enters what they see as an emergency stage, destroying your image. This is when the mask truly falls. No more sweet messages, no more indirect manipulation. They begin striking directly at your reputation, your credibility, and your identity, the very things you built with your heart and integrity. Because if they can't control you, they'll control how others see you. Suddenly you'll be labeled hot-tempered, disloyal, ungrateful, a covert manipulator, and the scariest part? They'll say these things calmly, rationally, and believably. They won't make outrageous lies. Instead, they'll distort small pieces of truth, just enough to make their version seem like painful honesty. Things you once shared in trust will now be used as evidence against you. A past complaint becomes proof that you've always been negative. A moment of vulnerability gets reframed as your true toxic nature. They'll tell stories where they are always the victim. And you'll always be the one who changed, the one who was unfair, the one who broke the balance. And because you're the one who walked away, because you've remained silent, you won't have a counter-narrative. To outsiders, your silence looks like guilt. This is manipulation at its highest level. They hurt you and then convince the world you deserved it. And it won't stop at words. They may sabotage your relationships, even your career. They'll call your friends under the guise of concern, subtly implying you're not doing well. They'll reach out to your colleagues or clients with a few things you should know. They might even stage scenarios to make you look bad and leave you with no way to prove otherwise. At this point, their goal isn't to win you back, it's to make sure you don't walk away with dignity. Narcissists cannot handle losing, not because they love you, but because your ability to thrive without them is a direct slap to their illusion of control. And if they can't hurt you emotionally, they'll try to hurt you through isolation, through misunderstanding, through the cold stares of people you once trusted, through whispers behind your back that slowly make you question, am I really as awful as they say I am? This is when you must be more grounded than ever. Do not try to refute every word they say. Do not exhaust yourself trying to fix every relationship they've tainted. Do not waste your energy proving your innocence. You don't have to. The truth doesn't need you to scream. It just needs you to stay grounded, move forward, and let time do what time does best. The narcissist may win a few battles, but they can't rewrite the story of your life. Unless you hand them the pen. Stage 5. Collapse and replacement. When they need someone new to erase the failure they felt with you. When every attempt to pull you back, the manipulation, the smearing, the gaslighting fails, the narcissist doesn't sit down to reflect. They don't learn a lesson. They don't look inward. They don't take responsibility. And they certainly don't handle failure with the maturity of a healthy adult. Instead, they collapse in their own way, quietly, through suppressed rage and with an urgent hunger to reclaim power as fast as possible. This is when they spiral in the void you left behind, but they'll never admit it. They don't miss you, they miss the feeling of controlling you. They don't regret losing you, they regret losing the power you once gave them. So, to fill that void, they enter the replacement phase. Suddenly, they're in love again, quickly, loudly, and publicly. You'll see happy couple photos, romantic captions, grand declarations as if they've just met their true soulmate, not because they genuinely love that person, but because they want you to see it. They need an audience. And the first person they want to perform for is you. Their quick leap into another relationship isn't proof that they've moved on. On the contrary, it's a desperate sign that they're trying to erase your image, not from their mind, but from public view, because if they don't appear to be thriving in love, people might start asking why you walked away. They fear exposure. They fear people will connect the dots. They fear that the perfect image they've carefully crafted will begin to crumble, unless it's quickly patched up with someone new. And that new person, sadly, isn't a new love, but a replacement role. At first, this person will be adored, idealized, worshipped just as you once were, but it won't last. Because narcissists don't love, they extract. And when the new supply stops giving them that high, the cycle restarts. Idealize, devalue, discard. You may even hear familiar lines, just aimed at someone else now. She's the first one who truly understands me. I feel like I can be myself with her. She's nothing like you. The same words you once heard, recycled, repurposed, tweaked for a new audience. Because to a narcissist, love isn't about connection, it's a script, and all they need is a new actor. So don't let what you see online shake you. Don't think you were wrong to walk away just because they appear to be happier than ever. What you're witnessing is a performance, not a healing journey. And if there's one silent pain haunting them in this moment, it's the fact that you made it through without them. They didn't replace you because you lacked anything. They replaced you because they couldn't stand the truth of your existence. Someone who saw through them, walked away, and still stands tall. Stage 6. Denial of reality. I am the victim here. After everything, after you walked away, after they've replaced you with someone new, after they've tried to smear your name, control the narrative, and twist the story to their advantage, something subtle but crucial begins to happen. They start rewriting reality, not to gain insight and not to heal, but to erase the truth and absolve themselves of all responsibility. A narcissist simply cannot exist in a reality where they are the one who caused the pain. Never. To face their wrongdoing would mean admitting they're not perfect, and perfection, even if it's fake, is the final mask they have left. If that mask falls, the entire illusion collapses. So instead of reflecting, they rewrite the script. But this time, you're no longer the beloved partner. Now, you're the problem. You're the wounded one they tried to save. You're the ungrateful person who couldn't appreciate the pure love they so selflessly gave. And they'll say it all with the calmest expression. No rage, no shouting, just a quiet sigh and lines like, I did everything I could, but she didn't want to change. She always doubted me, always blamed me, I was exhausted. I don't want to say too much, but anyone who's been in that relationship would understand. You fade from their story gracefully, but not innocently. You're redefined as a chapter best left behind. A dark period they're heroically trying to move past. And tragically, many people will believe them because narcissists don't tell the full story. They drip-feed curated truths, fragments of your pain, moments of your vulnerability, all arranged to paint themselves in the most sympathetic light. They leave just enough ambiguity for others to fill in the blanks, and those blanks always favor them. The most dangerous part of this stage, they begin to believe the story themselves, not because they've been fooled, but because they choose to fool themselves. It's the only way they can avoid facing what they fear most, their true reflection. You may see them now sharing profound quotes about growth, forgiveness, and letting go of the past. You may hear them talk about inner healing and moving forward, but it's all hollow, because healing can never begin where the truth has been completely buried. They'll refer to themselves as your ex with a sad, noble tone, but inside there's no compassion, only a fierce desire to protect their self-pigment at all costs, even if it means turning you into the villain. You'll notice people who once knew both of you, now looking at you differently, not because they're cruel, but because they only heard one side, the side the narcissist carefully crafted. And perhaps the deepest wound of all is this: you may start to doubt yourself. You'll catch yourself wondering, was I too reactive? Did I expect too much? Maybe I really was the problem, and that, right there, is the consequence of a distorted reality, when the victim starts to feel like the perpetrator. But here's what you must remember. You weren't overreacting, you were reacting to reality. You weren't difficult, you were exhausted from surviving. You weren't disloyal, you simply woke up and chose to save yourself. And the narcissist, they never look in the mirror. They only look to the crowd, still applauding the noble victim they pretend to be every single day. Stage 7. Recycling the script. The next one. A narcissist never truly lives in the present. They exist in the illusions of an unresolved past and the scripted futures they can control. So when the story with you ends, or more accurately, when you end it, despite their desperate grasp, they don't stop to reflect, grow, or change. They simply move to the next scene. They need a next act. They need a new audience. And, most of all, they need a new lead role to continue their old script. End of the next one. It usually happens fast, very fast. So fast that you might find yourself asking, was any of it real? How can they love someone new just days or weeks later? The answer is simple. They don't love the new person. They love the role that person is temporarily playing. As soon as the replacement begins, you'll see everything that once happened with you, replayed again, this time with a glossier script, a bigger stage, sweeter lines, photos of hand-holding, romantic captions, talks of healing love, soulmates, and finding light after the storm. It's not the truth. It's a performance. And you, though no longer on stage, are still the audience they desperately want to move, unsettle, or make feel like you've lost. And every line once said to you is now recycled for someone new. Like an old song played again, just with a different name in the lyrics. You're the first one who ever made me feel peace. Be you, I can finally be myself. No one's ever touched my soul the way you have. You once heard those words. Now, it wasn't love. It was technique. They don't build relationships. They stage them. They don't connect to people. They direct roles, and soon enough, when the new person begins to feel real emotions, asks hard questions, seeks sincerity and starts spotting red flags, the cycle will start all over again. Idealize, devalue, discard, just like what happened to you. But the new person won't believe it at first, just like you didn't. They'll think they're the exception, that they get the narcissist, that they will be the one who changes everything. You'll see it, and it may hurt, but you can't interfere, and you shouldn't, because just because you've awakened doesn't mean you're responsible for rescuing everyone still trapped in the maze. Just because you see them walking into your old story doesn't mean you need to shout, "Careful, I used to be you." The truth is, the narcissist never changes. They just change the stage. They swap out actors, and unless the next one is strong enough to see the truth, brave enough to walk away, they too will become another version of you. Another chapter in a book the narcissist refuses to finish. By you're no longer in that story. And the most beautiful thing is, you don't need to read the sequel to know how it ends. Stage: when you return to their mind. But this time, it's not love. Time passes. The glow of the new person fades. The thrill wears off. The manipulation cycle plays out again. But this time, it doesn't work like it used to. Even the audience that once applauded their role as the noble victim quietly begins to exit. And then, one quiet evening, as they scroll past an old photo, reread a past message, or hear a song that once echoed between you, you return to their mind. But not because they miss you as a person, not because they regret losing you, and certainly not because they've realized you were their true love. You come back because you are the one thing they couldn't control, and they can't stand that. You saw everything, and instead of chasing them, you walked away silently. You didn't rage, didn't beg, didn't lower yourself to win back their validation. You didn't fight the image war. You retreated like a warrior who had already won through awakening, and that is what haunts them. You didn't react, so they couldn't manipulate. You didn't return, so they couldn't claim victory. You didn't suffer publicly, so they couldn't play the abandoned hero. All that's left for them is a void they cannot fill, not because you were too special, but because they cannot tolerate someone leaving their grip and never looking back. And so you, with your peace, your quiet growth, and your smile no longer directed at them, become a scar they cannot erase. They might try to message again, just a harmless note perhaps. Just wanted to know how you've been. Haven't heard from you in a while. I still wish you the best. Don't let the gentleness fool you. It's not care. It's a test to see if you still react, a test to see if the door might still be opened, and if you respond, even with a single emoji, they'll know the stage can be rebuilt. But if you don't respond, your silence becomes a sentence heavier than any accusation. They'll tell others you're cold, that you're heartless. But the truth is, they're facing a version of you that is no longer under their control. And for someone who lives by manipulating others' emotions, nothing is crueler than being forgotten by the one they once viewed as a puppet. But you are not cruel, you are not vengeful, you are simply moving forward with the freedom they were never capable of giving. And while they continue rewriting new scripts, chasing new supply, playing new roles in new dramas, you only have one task: live truthfully, without acting, without return without apologizing for waking up. Because the greatest revenge is not to make them suffer, but to prove you're thriving without them. Now you see it clearly. The narcissist never really walks out of your life. They're left behind, trapped in the same cycle they created. They don't move forward. They just drag themselves from one role to another, from victim to pursuer, from angel to demon, all to avoid facing one single truth. They no longer have power over you, and you've walked through emotional chaos. You've endured questions no one could answer. You survived the smearing, the cold silence, the fake kindness. Most of all, you've overcome the self-doubt they hoped you'd never escape. You are not a victim. You are a survivor, and now you are awakened. If you're still on your healing journey, remember this: your silence is not avoidance, it is power. Your lack of response is not fear, it's the wisdom that reaction is a privilege reserved only for those who deserve it. The narcissist may never change, but you have forever. You don't need to prove it to anyone. You don't need to scream for someone to believe you. You only need to keep living, free, boundaried, and never letting anyone else rewrite your story. And if this video touched something deep in your heart, leave a comment, share your story, or simply type these two words: I'm awake. Hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, because we'll be walking many more paths of healing, freedom, and rebirth together. You deserve a life without manipulation, a life where love is not laced with control, and a life where you never again have to trade your soul just to be seen.